All right, let me get my cans on. All right, we're back for another episode. First, the sponsors. Head over to the website, johnbartoloshow.com, and check out a complete list of the sponsors there. I want to thank a few of them now. Shout out to Sig Sauer, Right On Optics, Enforce Weapon Lights, Volkwartson, Galco Leather Holsters, all the brands that support the show, Secure It, Rhino Metals, everybody. Special shout out to Howlerhead. Appreciate the booze, Dana. A lot of fun. Can't thank you guys enough. We had an action-packed week. We had the Super Bowl. We had fucking UFC fights. It's been something every day. But today, we got a special guest. He's not just a friend. He's a teammate. He's everything. We got the one and only Julian Erosa. Did I get it right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I practice. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on, John.
Oh, my God. I love having you on. We've been trying to do this for a minute, but you've been so busy. This man's active. So back up for a second, because I know people are going to look into your story and what you're all about. How did you get into the fight game? Because you're one of the more normal guys that I come across, at least from what I see. You have your shit together a little bit. How did you get into this, and how was the journey to this point? Because I know it's been a long one, and I know you've been in and out, but now it seems like you're really getting your feet underneath you. And what's got you to this point, and what made you get into fighting?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for having me on. And this place is absolutely amazing. It's like the ultimate man cave. So I can see why people want to come and hang out here with you. But yeah, me and my dad used to watch the WEC before the UFC was so, had fights every weekend. It was like one pay-per-view like every 6 months. So we used to watch the WEC and really enjoyed watching that. And my dad looked at Donald Cerrone one time and was like, "Hey man, you look like that guy. You should try to, you're built like him. You should try that stuff out." And I was like, I was more into skateboarding and snowboarding, and what comes with the territory of skateboarding every day at the skate park is getting into fights. And so one summer I had ended up getting into probably about 5 or 6 fights, and got in trouble. And my mom, it's funny because my mom, was, completely disappointed in me for getting into a street fight, but now she roots for me to beat people up in a cage just because it's sanctioned and I'm getting paid for it now, so it's all good.
It's funny how that is with parents, right? Yeah. It's funny how it starts out and it's like, don't do that. Yeah. And then you start doing it and it starts making you money, and they're like, my son.
Maybe she's, now she roots for me to beat up other people's sons. So, that's kind of how it happened. I just, I had gotten into some street fights, got into some trouble, and then moseyed into a MMA gym in Yakima, Washington, small town. And, the first question I asked was, how quick can I fight? And they're like, well, you got to train first, and train for a few months. And back then, we're talking like 14 years ago, the amateur fighting scene, especially in a small town like Yakima, was a half a step above street fighting.
It was like ragtag, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like it is now. I mean, now you got amateurs that have brown belts that have been training for, 6-7 years before their first amateur fight. So back then, it was a half a step above street fighting. I ended up getting into about 10 amateur fights, was 10-0 and in a year and a half, and decided to turn pro, and didn't look back from there.
Yeah, isn't it funny how it's evolved though? Like the old days, it was like Tank Abbott. It was like some guy like from the back of a bar room. Yeah, you know what I mean? And now it's really become a craft. Like you can't just waltz in and battle.
No,
it doesn't work that way.
Even back when I was an amateur, they would actually pull guys. Like if the fights would fall out, they'd pull guys out of the crowd to fight. Like, no joke. It was literally just like that. And I'm like part of that generation where that was the tail end of that.
Right.
Even my first amateur fight, I fought twice that night, and that's outlawed now. Like as amateurs, you can't fight more than a certain amount of rounds or whatever, so you can't fight multiple fights in a night. And my first amateur fight, my coach wasn't even there. I had a teammate cornering me, and they called him and said, "Hey, Julian's gonna fight twice tonight because another guy didn't show up." And he's like, "What the hell? No, just, if he won his fight, it's fine." It's like, "No, well, he won," and he's like, he just wants to do it again. So I ended up fighting twice that night, and it was fun. But it was a whole different scene than it is now, especially at the amateur level.
Well, originally too, like the fight game, we all had like these visions because we're in a similar age bracket where like we thought it was going to be like tournament styles and everything else, but it's evolved. It's become like a real, an authentic sport where you don't have to do these crazy tournaments with fucking alligators around the ring and everything.
Yeah.
Because that was like the original idea. Remember, they wanted like sharks and everything around the ring.
They're trying to make it as
fucking
as barbaric and as crazy as it could be.
So you get into this, I gotta ask, right? Because your mom probably like freaks out, and your dad's like, "Hey, let's go do this thing." But at what point did you sit down with them and like you all knew you had something? Like you were like, "I'm good."
Well, my parents have always been real supportive of anything I did. I was a skateboarder. I skateboarded for probably like 13, 14 years and dedicated a lot of my life to that and became really good at it. And my parents knew that wasn't the, the normal way of making a living.
Right.
But they always supported me whatever I did. And I gave everything I had. If I was going to do something, I would give it 110%. So when it came to fighting, they knew I wasn't necessarily looking for a career. They just wanted to, support me in what I wanted to do as a hobby. And so, there was never any question about it. They always thought, they thought I enjoyed it. And I was going to college at the same time. I was, going to school, and I was a good student. So they let me kind of have free reign of what I wanted to do on, my own time. And it just kind of evolved over time. And then, once I got into the Ultimate Fighter and, started pressing forward from there, they realized that this could possibly be, more than just a hobby for me.
Now, you have a special kind of resilience because you've been in and out of the UFC a couple times. You've been one of those guys that's battled for your spot. What has that been like? And do you love that? Or are you like, fuck, I want my respect?
Well, I think there's a couple different things that can happen to people, especially early on. You can either come into the UFC and you can smoke a couple dudes that are, that are ranked or something, and then you end up at the top, and then now you just have nothing but
beatdowns,
tough guys to fight in front of you. And for me, it's been the opposite. Like I've been cut. This is my third stint in the UFC, which I think is probably the most out of anybody. Like I don't know any.
Maybe Timmy. Elliott.
Yeah, maybe Tim. Yeah. I think me and him are like had battles for the most fired and rehired by the UFC. But so for me, like it's been the opposite. Instead of like getting in the UFC and doing really well and getting stuck with these crazy opponents, I've gotten the UFC and then got knocked out. Got in the UFC, got knocked out of it again, and then got back in the UFC. And now I've been doing better and getting my feet under me, and kind of stabilizing myself in the UFC. And I think it's been a bit better that way because I haven't had to jump up and fight some crazy dudes because I was just smoking people in the beginning.
I will tell everyone, in the 3 years I've been at the gym, in the 2 years I've watched this man, he's a professional. He comes in, goes about his business, does his work, leaves. It's all love when he comes in, all love when he leaves. And that's rare. That's hard to find. Like, it's a maturity level that you've reached. And I think, I didn't know you before, but knowing you now, I see someone who's coming in and it's a job and you're doing the work. And that's a tough mindset for a fighter to get. A lot of them come in and they want to, like you said, fly into the top 10, and they don't understand longevity and how to build and how to do it right. You stayed the course and you've done it right. I imagine mentally it's had to make you one tough son of a bitch inside.
Yeah, man. Perseverance it's such a hard thing to deal with because, I was 1-4 in the UFC at one point and then cut for the second time. And, it's hard to get in the UFC one time, let alone 2 times,
right,
let alone 3 times. And so for me, that's something I really had to battle with mentally. And it kind of gave me a chip on my shoulder because I told myself, if I have to go to these regional shows again, I'm going to make sure I'm the best in shape. I'm the best regional show killer out there. And maybe I'll get into another big show some way or another. And luckily for me, COVID hit, and a lot of people, it kind of sucks for them. But for me, it was probably the best time because fights were falling out of the UFC, and I was 1-4 of the UFC. So, like, they weren't knocking on my doorstep, and they weren't calling me. They weren't blowing my phone up to fill in fights. So, when the COVID hit and a lot of fights were falling out, just being here in Vegas, having my medicals done, and being in shape and can make the weight made all the difference.
And that's half the battle of being a pro. I mean, that's what people don't understand. To be a pro, you got to be ready.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean a 1 week notice fight. I think some of the guys that took some of those really short notice ones were a little crazy. What's the shortest notice you've taken?
Well, that Sean Woodson fight that I took for my third stint in the UFC was 3 days.
Okay.
But luckily for me, Jason House, my manager,
shout out to Jason.
Yeah, and Iridium Sports Agency. I mean, obviously they have a million guys in the UFC, but they do a really good job of, keeping us, in the loop on everything. And so for me, I was 1-4 in the UFC, and he's like, "Hey man, we can get you back in the UFC." I was like, "Really?"
But he was like, "Be ready."
Yeah. And when the COVID hit, he said, a lot of fights are going to be falling out, so just stay ready, Julian. And I was like, "You ain't got to tell me twice." And so I was riding my bike every day. We were training kind of underground in people's garages. at 10th Planet. We were, trying to
taping the windows.
Yeah, we were trying to slide our way in while people were during shutdown. And so, for me, I basically had a 5-week camp leading up to that fight that I didn't know I was getting ready for. So it was like 5 weeks. I was, training hard, 2 days, riding my bike like crazy. And then, ended up getting the call on a 3-day notice. But I had a little bit of an idea because my manager, kept me in the loop.
He kept you in the loop. Now, you're long as fuck for a featherweight. Do you have trouble with the weight ever?
No, not really. Obviously, the short notice fight with Sean Woodson, we did at 150, and I made that, and I didn't know. So, I was on the weekends kind of enjoying myself a little bit because I didn't know how to fight.
Chicken nuggets.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would let myself enjoy it for a night, and then I'd get back on it the week, and then I would be water loading. I'd be almost weight cutting, getting ready for that weekend, hoping that I was going to get a fight. And so, it was a little difficult. Some of those short notice ones, I took Jourdain on 10 days notice. And it was 150 as well. So for some reason, physiologically, my body, 46, 47, 48, 49, is difficult. But 50 is not a problem. I can do 50 on a really short notice, but I think those last few pounds, my body just doesn't want to get that low. And so I need a little bit of time to really put in all the necessary things I need to do to make the weight.
And weight classes evolve as your body matures. I mean, everybody goes through that kind of flux. But it's amazing how you make weight because you are super long. I mean, I was at the one fight where you just, you slapped a darce on a guy, and I said, those fucking arms, you can't, because you're long and you can reach out and touch somebody from a distance. So I think featherweight really suits you. I think coming in at that weight, it's just you look the part in the ring. Yeah. And that's important. And then you move really well at that weight.
Yeah, and I can make the weight comfortably. If I, even on a 2-week notice, I can make the weight comfortably. So until it gets to the point where I can't do it comfortably, and it's really taking a toll on my fighting abilities, then I'll have to figure out if I want to move up or whatever the situation is. But being 6'1",
you've got a lot of room.
74.5-inch reach. I can, I'm like a Dan Hooker. If I could make 50, I could probably do 55, but I mean, I'd have to do some certain things. I'd want to build a little bit more mass. But at featherweight right now, I'm comfortable making it. I'm 32 years old, so I'm pretty much as big as I'm going to get right now. So I'm a grown adult. So and I can make it comfortably still. So I'm okay at featherweight. And like you said, I'm long, rangy, and I'm kind of a nightmare at the weight class.
Of course, I think so. I think you've hit the sweet spot, and I think the conditioning and the way you come in speaks volumes about where you were versus where you are, and and how seriously you take it. Because let me tell you guys, when you walk in the gym, he's ready to go. He's all business, and you see it in the fighters. There's guys who just don't take that seriously. What advice do you give guys that are struggling to make the league and struggling to kind of maybe they've been kicked out once, what advice do you give them? Because like you said, you're the GOAT in terms of in and out. So how do you, when guys come up to you and they say, I want to make it, or I just got cut, what do you say?
Man, that's a tough one. It's just, it's something that I've always been really avid about. And that is just giving 110% to whatever it is I want to do. If I was going to fight, and I was like I said, I was 1-4 in the UFC, cut again, thinking, holy shit, man, I'm going to go back to making, $1,000 to go fight some regional show for a title. It's like, it's a bit frustrating. It can be depressing, but I told myself, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to be the best at that. Mm-hmm. So I gave everything I had. I went and fought one regional show against a kid named AJ Bryant, who was actually pretty good. He was 13-3. Fought him and I finished him. And luckily, then the COVID hit, and I only had to do one fight out of the UFC to get back in, and was able to take that fight short notice. But the reason why I was able to take it short notice too was because I do work on the off time. Some people have a fight, they take a couple months off, and it's like I never wanted to miss out on an opportunity just because of my weight, just because I was being lazy, because of this or that. I wanted to make sure that even right now, I don't have to take a fight in the UFC short notice because I'm pretty. You're
more stable. Yeah.
I'm not worried about my job per se right now with the UFC, so I don't have to. But I would hate to give up a good opportunity because of that.
Now it becomes, and Cody Stamen and I have talked about this. As you start winning, and you have a couple, knock on wood, and we're so proud of you. It's crazy to say, and I love seeing your development. It gets a little political. Now you got to be a little choosy with your opponents. You got to be a little smarter, especially as you crack into the top 15, top 10. You have to play the game. Yeah. And that makes it a little tougher. Are you prepared to start playing that game, or do you feel like whoever comes, I'm going to take them?
Yeah, after being successful, you got to always realize that it can turn at any given time. I can be out of the UFC just as quick as I was in it, and it's already happened twice to me. So, you want to be a little smart about who you're fighting. You want to, like when I was on the I had a 3-fight losing streak on my second run in the UFC. I took a fight short notice with Devontae Smith up a weight class, who was 8-1 with 8 knockouts. I got knocked out by him. It's like, that probably wasn't the smartest fight. Even Jason, my manager, was like, hey, man, we can wait and get you a featherweight fight, or you can take this one right now. And I was like, man, you know me, anytime, anywhere, anybody, let's go. And, that was my attitude at the time. But now I've kind of had to switch my attitude and just be a little bit choosier about the opponents. And I think it was back then I felt like I needed to be the guy that could be anybody, anytime, anywhere for the UFC. But now I feel like they understand that and they have that respect that they give me about that. So I don't have to be so anytime, anywhere.
Yeah,
anybody.
no, I love that attitude. But I think Sean Shelby, if you're listening, I know you know Sean, but or Mick, it's hard because you also have to worry about your career. You don't want to become a punching bag, and you don't want to be a guy that's just jumping into everything. I think a lot of guys did that over COVID. There's a couple names of guys that I think took on a lot, and I think in the short run, it lines your pockets. In the long run, it can be a bad thing because once this all cleans itself out, now the mandate's being lifted, and the world is the UFC's oyster again. It starts to be more political and more. You got to be a little choosy. Yeah,
for sure. I want to. And honestly, my last fight with Steven Peterson is like exactly how I want my fights to be. Like, I want to be that guy. I get more, I don't know what it's called, what the word is, but I just get more satisfaction from a fight like that.
Fulfillment.
Yeah, that's kind of how my fighting is, and that's my style. That's kind of like embodied my last, handful of wins that I have in the UFC have really embodied my character and who I am as a fighter. I've always been kind of a dog in the gym, and so like that fight, brought it out perfectly in me. And it was, I gotta also give props to Steven Peterson because he brought it out of me as well. But like I get satisfaction from those types of fights. Then like, okay, I need to do A, B, and C and walk away with this win. I mean, sometimes you just want to let it all hang out, and that's like, and I feel like a lot of fighters respect that too. They, I get a lot of positive feedback from that. Man, like you and Peterson really left it all in the cage. I hate when I see someone go in there and lose a fight and have energy afterwards. I'm like, if I'm going to lose, I'm not going to be able to walk because I'm going to be, completely done.
Yeah, it's hard, and I think a lot of it has to do with, studying your tape, not making early mistakes. I think tape is coming in big now in the UFC. I've talked about this with a couple of trainers, couple of instructors. I think it's, and I know it's something that's really important to understand what you need to do to get to the next step, and whatever that is. Put on a good show, have a great round. Hey, these are the tendencies. This is what we need to look at. So I think the sign of a true professional who's fully developed never gets caught. You know what I mean? You kind of get in a position where, and you did that to a guy when I saw you slap the Darce choke on him, and it's like you don't want to be that guy on the other end of it ever again.
Yeah, definitely. You want to, like you're saying, like you want to, start, being able to take every little advantage because we're playing a game of inches. There used to be bigger gaps, back, even 5-10 years ago, there was a lot bigger gaps in people's skills. So you could get away with only being a grappler with because
people are specialists.
Yeah, exactly. But now it's like everybody's good at everything. People have, the striking, people have the grappling, the wrestling, everything. So, it's the little bit that counts, whether it's the cardio, whether it's the toughness, the heart, the determination, whatever that is, those little extra things outside of actual skill fighting is what's going to make the difference. And, you always want to be the guy that if it becomes a dog fight, that you have the bigger dog in you.
Now, it's funny because we both do jiu-jitsu. I'm noticing that a lot of the finishes aren't working anymore. Guys are really learning how to defend finishes really, really well. I mean, we saw it in the Ortega fight. I mean, Brian is as high level as it gets. And I remember texting after with Henner, I was like, holy shit, and to me, what I see is I see guys preparing for a lot of those finishes now. Like they're able to sit in them a lot longer. Are you feeling that in the ring?
Oh, I mean, not like not really with experience because with the Sean Woodson Darce and Charles Jourdain Darce, it was at the end of the fight, and it felt like they were looking for a way out almost, you know. And I'm not going to say that those guys were necessarily looking for a way out.
No, I know what you mean. The fatigue was setting in.
Yeah, and like if I would have slapped a Darce on either one of those guys in the first round, probably would have fought out of it, you know, till they were out. But you know, in the third round, it's tough. You know, you've been through it for 2.5 rounds, and now you get, you know, stuck in a Darce choke, and that's one of my favorite moves. So it's going to be tight, and it's, you know, it's a little easier to want to tap out of those things later on than earlier on. But I mean, shoot, Ortega had
4 submissions,
dead. You know, he had him dead to rights in a triangle choke. It was just absolutely insane. You know, and I think that's a little bit more. That's a little bit of you know, just hard determination and perseverance. You know, some guys feel that tight triangle on them, and they're like, well, I'm done. So like, I just got to tap. But Volkanovski, you know, is tough, and he's not just going to tap. You know, he's going to have to go out. I don't think we would have ever seen Volkanovski tap. I think he would have had to, you know, they would have had to wake him up and be like, hey, bro, he put you out.
After that fight, I seriously was like, wow, everybody who's like a big-time jiu-jitsu practitioner is going back to the well and reevaluating, because, I mean, he had, especially the triangle, he had that cinched down so hard. I was like, how? And I kind of tested myself. I'm like, let me hold my breath for a second, see how long you can hold this, because that's kind of the gauge. You kind of see like, oh, shit, like that's longer than I expected. But, I mean, it's amazing to see the evolution, like you said, from specialists to now everybody being well-versed, managing the distance, controlling the ring a lot better. And it's funny because, like we said, we talked about the people that have the meteoric rises, right? Like, what do you do with Weili Zhang now? You know what I mean? Who had it, like, you know, you love her and you love to see her back in the ring, but it's like, what do you do now? You have to start at the bottom and then come all the way back up, or start in the middle somewhere. So it's harder. Both come with their pluses and minuses. I think you're at a sweet spot where you're a guy who gives people fits, like you said, the range, just everything. Do you have trouble getting fights because of that?
Not necessarily.
I never asked you that.
Not necessarily. I mean, I haven't really experienced any difficulties with getting fights, especially in the UFC. It's just been like whoever they had, I was fighting. And I think that's how it is in the UFC. When you're in one of these big shows, you got to get past that like regional show aspect where you're like, nah, I don't want that guy. No, that guy seems a bit tough for where I want to be at right now. I mean, especially like when you're trying to build a record on the smaller shows to get to the big show. It's like you want to take really smart fights because you want to build your record. Every loss is going to make it one more step harder back than to get to one of the, you know, the UFC, the contenders, all these shows. And so for me, you know, I understand that aspect of it. But once you get to the UFC, you can't really say no. I mean, I feel like that guy.
I feel like the women, Julian, got to be a little more careful because I feel like they rush some of them. I feel like some of the women don't sit back and strategize a little bit better, and that might be a byproduct of the divisions being a little shallow. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's harder to pick your spots a little bit because the field is a little thinner. I mean, we're seeing it change a little bit, and we're seeing it evolve, but you still see some of them feel like they're kind of thrust into the mix a little bit.
Well, and then I think that goes to show when you see some of these really lopsided title fights in the women's division. When you have like title fights in the men's divisions, you're talking about splitting hairs. I mean, you got guys that like on any given night could smash each other, you know, to bits. But then you got some of these, you know, these women fights that are going on. You're like, you feel bad for the opposed or the guy that's trying to come in or the girl that's trying to come in because you're like, man, she's plus 1100. Like this girl's about to get smoked. You're almost worried for her well-being.
100%. I mean, I think a lot of people felt that way too going into the Julianna Pena fight with Amanda, and she kind of surprised everybody and came in with her shit together, and you know, and that was really something, you know, and that's not really that big of a swing, but it's still. I mean, everybody who knows Julianna Pena, she was, you know, prepared. She goes about her business, but at the same time, I mean, everybody thought Amanda was a wrecking ball.
Yeah, well,
interesting.
Well, even Amanda beat. Was it the title fight before that? I can't remember what her name was. Tall, white girl with a bunch of tattoos on her. She trains at Glory MMA with James Krause and them. Can't remember her name, but she fought for the title, and it was like,
I know what you mean. I can't remember her name.
It was just such a lopsided situation. And I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but it's just like the skill levels are so big because it's so shallow.
We see it a lot with Valentina.
Yeah, You'll see her go in there, and it's like, she's fighting that girl for the title. Like they're really running out of talent, you know.
She's run through the. I mean, there's no question she's run through the division twice.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a question there.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult. Now, interestingly enough, when you're not in the ring, do you still skateboard?
I try to a little bit. Obviously, the concrete's a bit unforgiving. So for me, I try to stay on my. I try to get out there and do the things I love to do. And skateboarding is one of them. I just got a new board, and we were cruising around the other day, and I realized that my feet weren't quite under me like I remember them being. So it's going to take a few Sundays to get back in the gist of it. But I enjoy it for sure. You
should call Jeremiah Vance. He still thinks he's a skate pro. You should call him. He's every now and then I think he still breaks out the board. Yeah. But he did skate for quite a while. But I have to imagine the concrete isn't ideal in your off-season activities, or not necessarily what you want to be doing, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean,
you don't get hurt.
The worst, yeah. I mean, it's the risk reward is a bit different now, especially being in the UFC and making the, making career type of money. If I fall and break my wrist,
God, yeah,
I gotta be out for a year because of that.
Yeah, I know. I never think of that, but like, yeah, you have to kind of give up some things. I mean, even in here, this place is so dangerous, Julian. I ruptured an Achilles just moving stuff around. So I have to be careful a little bit. But it's fun, and it's fun watching you, and it's watching the maturation and everything that you've been doing the last couple of years. And you're a good teammate. I see you sparring with a lot of people, jumping in, helping out camps, and that's invaluable. Not everybody does that. It's a rare thing. I just for me, it's like I want to help people that are going to help me out. And I've always, right when I moved to Vegas, it was just like I came from a small gym mentality, and we had to help everybody out. Mm-hmm. I had to help the heavyweight crazy. Then the heavyweight had to help our girl fighters, like, because we only had a handful of people in there. So I kind of came from that mentality where it's like, if anybody needs help, if I'm the guy that they're looking at to help, I'm going to help. You know? And so, helping out everybody eventually is going to, circle around and help me out in the long run. Of course. Now, you got a foothold. You've been scrapping. You've been doing well. What's the dream scenario for you from here? How does it play out?
Oh man,
the next 18 months.
I don't really think about much after the fight until the fight's over, and even then I'm kind of just like, just trying to take it all in. Like February 5th to me for the longest time was the last day of my life in my mind, because I wanted to, if I was gonna, if that was the last day of my life, I want to make sure that I'm gonna, go out swinging, or, per se, I want to go out and just and do the best that I can.
Crush it.
And so after Peterson, it was like I never really had anybody specifically in mind about fighting them. But ideally for me, I just want those types of fights, like Alex Caceres would be a fun one, I think. But just guys that are willing to like exchange and then are going to have an exciting fight with me. I don't want a guy that's, just trying to move ahead, just trying to hold on to get that second ticket or that second check. I want a guy that's willing to leave it all out there like Peterson was.
Yeah, you want to be a little strategic, but I think the next 18 months are going to be really fruitful for you. I think a lot of stuff's going to come down the pipe that you're looking for. Is a top 10 ranking on the mind? Is that something you want to chase, or is it just the right opponent in the right situation?
Yeah, it's the right opponent, right situation. And for me, like I said earlier, like I get more satisfaction from a fight like me and Peterson got. Than to move into like a rankings, like a top 10. Eventually, if that happens, that's cool. But for me, I get so much more satisfaction from having that fight and getting the positive feedback after a fight like that.
Oh, I get it. Hit one button.
Oh, no worries. Take your time.
No, one of the screens was acting up. Hopefully, the feed's still fine, guys. I know one of the buttons just lit up. Now listen, it's amazing to watch, and fighting in preparation takes its toll. Do you do a good job separating everything else and all the distractions? Do you have a way of mitigating them, or are they just inevitable and you always have to deal with them?
I think it's one of the things where you definitely deal with them, but you got to get used to that. You got to get used to the fact, like even like a good variation of what you just said is just a lot of people deal with, like, whether it's a crowd, whether you're traveling for a fight, whether the weight cut wasn't the best, whether, all these little distractions and things going on in your life. You have to understand that these things happen and be okay with them. You can never get too high or too low, in my own mind. I think one negative thing can snowball into a bigger thing. And so for me, like leading up to a fight, or I with all the the variables and the different distractions that are going on, understand that those happen, and to be okay with that. That you don't get too high, you don't get too low. You can go into a fight and be relatively clear-minded. If you let some of these things get too big, then I think it can be detrimental.
Do you do anything different? Like, you in a float tank? Do you light incense? Is there any trick?
No, for me it's like skateboarding, snowboarding, it's running, hikes. It's like going out, it's enjoying myself. Those are the decompressions that I need. But even training is a decompression for me. Like, I only fight because I really like to do it. If I didn't like to do it, I wouldn't be doing this. I did this for so long without making any money. I did this for, up until the last 2 years, really is when I made any kind of financial gain from fighting. Before that, I was paying to fight. So it's only because I truly enjoy doing it that I do it. So for me, training in itself, going to my 9 a.m.s, going to grappling at night, going to spar, these are the times that I get my decompression.
Right.
So I really enjoy it. So my life is basically pretty chill as it is.
Yeah, I think having something that's a little bit of an outlet helps a ton.
Yeah.
Whether it's like you like movies, you like going out to dinner, whatever it is, anything that's going to take your mind away from it. And I agree with you. Like, after a fight, you put so much emotion into it. Like you're saying, that you need a little time to decompress, look at the field, figure out what your next strategic move is. You're in a great spot, man. And it's a lot of fun to see. And I'm going to be really interested in seeing, what the next opponent is. Now, when y'all, looking at the UFC and you're looking at guys and you're looking at their career paths, who are guys you look at that you love what they're doing and how they're doing it?
Like I said earlier,
or gals.
Well, I think Alex Caceres would be a fun fight, but I just really admire what he's done. He's been in and out of he's been in the UFC for such a long time. Yeah, he's had his ups, he's had his downs, he's changed weight classes and stuff, but right now he's on like a 5-fight win streak, and it just goes to show, if you just stay with it and believe in yourself, like, everything, doors will open for you, and success is just right around the corner if you believe in yourself. And I think he's one of those guys who's done really well, and he's been there so long. It's crazy. He's like, I think me and him are pretty much the same age, but it seems like he's been in the UFC for it seems like 20 years, but but he's been there for over a decade, I think. But guys like that, guys that are, or even like Arlovski. Arlovski is on like a 5-fight win streak or something, and he's 43 years old and he's still doing it. He's like, these are inspirational people that keep me positive about where I'm at and what I could do. I'm 32 years old, but see a guy like Darren Elkins, who's years older than me, but he's still doing it. He's still fighting at the highest level. So I just get a lot of positive motivation from those kind of guys.
And I think Aldo's one of those guys, right? Yeah. Like, you look at what Aldo has done with his career and how he's reinvented himself. Yeah. He's like a totally different fighter now.
Yeah, he's an absolute savage. And and it goes without saying that there's like handfuls of guys just like that that obviously we can't mention everybody, and it's not gonna all come to the top of my head, but he's such a perfect example of that, because he was in the WEC fighting at featherweight and smoking everybody, and then he made it to the UFC and was the featherweight king. He's the king of Rio, and then things didn't, they kind of slowed down for him. He started losing fights to some of the top guys. But he's changed weight classes, and now he's he fought for the title at one point, and he was doing well.
He's throwing hands like unbelievable.
And I think a couple more fights, he's in line to possibly fight for the title again. And so you just got to see what's going to happen. But all those, he's got perseverance, he's got toughness, he's got durability, and overall he's got skill. So he's a perfect example of someone that motivates me as well.
And the conditioning is freaking on point. I mean, he looked like he was carved out of fucking stone in that last fight.
Well, and he's looked like this since day one.
Amen.
Like when you see some of these guys and you see a picture of them when they first started and see a picture of them now, you're like, and they're still in like crazy good shape. It's like, they're putting the work in.
Yeah, it's crazy, and working all the different stuff, whether it's boxing and reinventing yourself through camps, it's a lot of work, and people don't realize to be at that level of capability, the separation, even in mid-card fights, is like 0.1. It's like, it's that close. It's guys with just a little bit better technique, just a little bit more speed. Maybe they just have a little bit better game plan, but it's fractions of an inch most of the time, especially as you start winning and progressing and you're fighting equal talent.
Yeah, and it can come down to just the genetics. Like, someone could be genetically predisposed to, having
Longer
advantages,
arms,
whatever it is. Yeah. So, and being able to use those things to your advantage. So, it's crazy. I mean, like we were saying before time, like 10 years ago, the gaps were bigger, and now the gaps have gotten so small that you literally have to be an expert everywhere, and even an expert in things that is hard to teach, which is heart. Being able to have that dog in you, you got to learn these things that are really hard to learn.
Mm-hmm. And I think as time goes on, what I like about the direction the UFC is going in, as they bring in more of these like grappling events and things like that, I think it creates a lot of opportunity for guys that maybe don't want to go in the octagon anymore, and maybe they want to participate in some of these grappling events, so their careers can go a little bit longer. Like you mentioned, into their 40s, but maybe into their 50s if they want to have like an all-stars or a legacy type matchup. Because I like that, though. I mean, I think there's a lot of matchups you want to see that you haven't seen through the years, and maybe you don't get it in the octagon, but maybe later on you get it on the mats in some other form or fashion. I think that shit's fun.
Well, yeah, and it really exposes other aspects of, like even jiu-jitsu, like the whole SUG. Like, you got guys like Andy Varela, who's like literally one of the best grapplers I've ever got to roll with, and you don't get to see him in the cage, so it's nice to see him on something like SUG where he can really show his advantages and show what he's good at.
The talent is just through the roof, and I like to see it all harnessed, and like 100%. To see them take advantage of it, because at the end of the day, it's about the content, right? And it's about creating good content, and that's what's hard. Now, interestingly enough, we're opening back up. So the UFC is going to start traveling. Yeah. Do you like that they're going to start traveling, or did you like it when it was here more?
I actually liked it when it was here, just because I did the Ultimate Fighter. I had 4 fights in the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah, and it was the same kind of situation. I did Contenders. So before I had my first Apex fight, I had 5 fights in that same scenario. So I was real comfortable, and it's nice just to fight here. Like at the Apex, it's like they get you in, you fight, they get you out, and then I'm at my house watching fights before the fights are even over, on the same card that I just fought on. So it's pretty wild to see that, and to be a part of that, to be in and out. It's almost like a conveyor belt. They just get you in, they get you out. But also it will be nice to go to another place like Houston or something and kind of see
the energy.
Yeah, and see different areas, see the different energy, and feel that energy in the in these arenas with hundreds of thousands of people.
It's funny to me because I was really curious how the traveling would affect. In the beginning, it was no crowd noise, remember? And now, you have the little crowds. I love the idea, and I know Dana's talked about keeping one of the fight nights here. Yeah. Like, I love that idea with the smaller ring. I feel like that's fucking cool. And you know how that venue is. It's really interactive, and it's close. Yeah. It's not the crowd you want. Like, it's not the big crowd with the big venue, but I feel like it's intimate and it hits a little harder, right?
Yeah, that was the perfect word. I was going to say it was intimate. It's almost like,
I almost ran in the ring with you.
Yeah, it's like you're like a sparring session, and you got a new guy you're sparring with. He's got his coaches, and you're coming in, and then you're just kind of handling business. Because at the gym, it's like, it's the same kind of vibe. You have, maybe 20 people around watching or in the gym, and so it's kind of just that same kind of setting. So it kind of takes a little bit of that pressure off when you're talking about crazy crowds. You're walking in, and thousands of people are screaming your name, drunk, throwing beer everywhere, that can, those
be distracting too.
Well, that's one of those distractions. Is one of those variables that you have to deal with as a fighter. And so fighting at the Apex, it takes that variable out. But you get a little bit more intimate with some of the people that are there. It's like, I remember when I fought Jourdain, he jumped, and I kind of kicked him in the cup, and some guy was like, "You're a cheater," and I was like, and I was having a conversation with him while Jordan. I was like, "I ain't cheating, ain't nobody cheating over here," and but it was kind of funny because I was kind of having a conversation with him. With the spectator during the fight, because it was so quiet there.
Yeah, it's super tight. I think when there was no crowd, that was a little rough.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah,
that's weird because it's like it's too sterile. Yeah, you know what I mean. I feel like you need to have at least a little crowd there so you can feel it, a little bit.
100%.
But I like the smaller ring, and I like keeping one of those fight cards in that tight ring. I think it just throws a little curveball in there. You know what I mean? And it's fun when you go. I can't describe it to people listening. Like when you go, it's hard because I'm trying to give, not a lot of people who listen have been in the Apex for a fight. It's a tight, intimate. It's a lot tighter than it looks on TV. Yeah. It's not very big. It's just you're there and you're on top of each other, and literally when you walk out the ring, like you're in the crowd.
Yeah, it almost feels like backyard fight ish. You know, you get a little bit of that vibe. Obviously, you're fighting the UFC. You know, you got Sean Shelby. You got these guys sitting right
Nick.
around. Yeah, these guys. Yeah, you're like, that's once you get past that, you get that little bit of a a street fight kind of vibe.
Yeah, I think it's good that they're going to travel again. I think that they're putting some dates on. I believe like after March 12th, they start hitting the road a little bit again, as they pull through March. And I think that's the right play because it's good for you guys. And you have to develop those fan networks, all over the country because there's people that want to see you guys, and it's not just in Houston or Jacksonville. There's other areas that they need to get into. It's going to be a long while before they get up to the Northeast again, at least other than maybe New York if Dana can ever pull it off. But that's, we'll see as the mandates get lifted. But now we get, no mask mandate here, so
and that's amazing. Going to the grocery store is just it's a bit better now. It's like, man, before it was like I check all my pockets, and then if you're not wearing a mask, people are just giving you
the stink eye. Or if you cough, my god, it's you're dead.
Especially right when everything was going, like when it first started happening a couple years back, it was like people start coughing or you have allergies and people are like giving you a weird look, like you're fucking like a zombie and you're gonna infect them.
You're gonna get them. Yeah. Now it's crazy how many people have gravitated towards martial arts and training during COVID. To me, it's nuts. Every time we talk to Casey Alstead, Casey's like, "Hi, coach." Casey's like, we got new members. People want to come in. People want to join. Does that surprise you at all? The amount of people that are coming towards martial arts?
I think it's just one of those things that's expanding. Especially with like social media and just like the internet. It's like everything expands. Like even skateboarding's on the same like kind of path. It was like I remember when I was skateboarding and getting pretty good, it was like we didn't have everything on Instagram. We didn't have things that were like right there. We
bought VHSs.
Exactly. We watched VHS skateboard tapes. So it's like even that in a sense is like expanded and it's become more mainstream like for everything. So I think just MMA, people think it's, it's becoming more mainstream. They're like, well, maybe I can get into that. But if you're like a housewife and you want to get into it, jiu-jitsu is perfect. I mean, it's pretty low impact. You can learn how to defend yourself, and it's something fun. It's a fun pastime you can do, and you can kind of get a little bit of a understanding about what some of these guys are doing in the cage.
I love when people say it's the gentle art.
Yeah,
that always cracks me up. I'm like, yeah, it's gentle till you're fucking choked.
Yeah, I get it in the sense of it's gentle in the sense of like not getting punched in the face, like compared to like boxing or like kickboxing or MMA fighting. Jiu-jitsu is a bit more gentle in that sense, but man, it's rough. You come to Andy Varela's class at night and we're getting after
I don't go because of that.
Yeah, people are, I mean, it's far from gentle.
The 6 a.m.s for me. That's where I live and breathe. That's like the housewives class. I'll take that. That's what I'm okay with at this point in my life. I can't be getting in there and getting my head pounded. I even sparring, it's like, when you're a regular dude, it's like, give me a fucking break. I got to go to work in the morning.
People are more docile about 6 a.m., I think.
I like the 6 a.m. because it challenges me to get up, and that's usually the first challenge. So it's like you got to get out of bed, you got to put the time in. So I enjoy that class. I've always enjoyed it, and Casey's done a great job with it. It's more of like an everyman's type of class, but Andy's class at night, it's no joke. And
that's like even like me talking about like the amateurs now have so much talent compared to what it was before. Even the hobbyists, even the dads that are coming.
Oh my god,
man! I grapple some of these guys, and I'm like, holy crap! Like the skill that you have right now has surpassed the skill that I had when I was a pro. I was like undefeated, like 8-0 as a pro, and these guys that are just doing it for like hobbyists are better than I was then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've heard horror story. I've never been up to Dan Aaron's gym when he was in New York.
Yeah.
But I know, there was talk about guys that were like accountants that nobody knew nothing about that were just murderers on the mat.
Yeah. It's crazy. People really putting the time and effort into it. And like I said, if you're going to do something, you might as well be do the best that you can at it. And so you get some of these guys that really have that competitive spirit that are just regular dudes that have a 9 to 5 and they come in at night and they really get after it and they really put their time and effort into it. And these guys are killers.
I remember one of the first times Julian caught my eye, he was testing for a belt and he doesn't even remember this. And I remember he had a gas tank better than everybody testing him. And I'm like, this motherfucker, like, everybody knows my thoughts on belting. I think the whole belting process is fucking retarded. But and I've said it 100. I've argued with Vinny about it. I've talked about it 100 times. No one can explain it to me, so it doesn't make any sense. So it never will. But we put in a little bit of a process to clean it up, and that makes sense, and it's a little bit better. But he would go there and test, and he had more gas in his tank than half the guys teaching him, and that was fucking cool. With the exception, of course, always of Andy and certain guys that are just fucking amazing and just super talented, and the athleticism's off the charts. You know what I mean? And just what they're able to do with their body is fun to watch. So, but seeing your gas tank, I was like, all right, this dude's for real. I'm like, this is fucking legit.
Well, yeah, for me, it's one like that's something I can control. I can control 100%. You know? And it's like some people just like, I mean, whether it's like you're not getting a certain technique right, and some techniques not for certain people. But I tell you one thing, anybody can get better at cardio at any time. You just got to put the time and effort into it. And so for me, that's always been one of my weapons, because I know I can get better and better and better and just keep pushing myself in that aspect. Sometimes I might not be able to do an arm bar the best way. You know, I might not have the best technique on a certain technique, whether it's striking or whatever it is. But cardio, you can always get better. I
loved Mike Zanger from BJJ Fanatics way he explained it. He said talent and skill, and I could go back and pull the quote. He said talent and skill doesn't equal knowledge.
Yeah.
He goes, you get guys, they're 50 years old when they start, but they have a huge breadth of knowledge by the time they're 60.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you might not be the most talented. You might never be the most athletic. But like you said, the things you can't control, gas tank, just ability to show up and be able to be ready to perform, headspace, all those things. That's what makes, like, that nighttime class, you can't show up and just be like, hey, I'm kind of here to do jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm here to roll. Like,
you gotta take your pre-workout before you go to that class, because you know you're gonna be in for it.
That's why I don't go.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
And those are the little variables, you know. Some nights you'll see a guy beat a guy and you're like, holy crap, like, I can't believe that guy beat that guy. But it could have been the smallest little thing. It could have been, you know, the little distraction. It could have been, you know, getting in his own head. And sometimes getting in your own head will kill your own gas tank. So, I mean, there's so many variables.
It's so easy to deflate, you know. Yeah. It's hard to get up, but it's easier to deflate.
Yeah.
Now, how soon you want to fight again?
I'm always down to fight.
Realistically.
I mean, realistically, I'm thinking like May or June would be nice.
Take a little time.
Yeah, Casey always wants me to kind of just like take a little bit of time in between. For me, I feel like, I'm 32. There's only
Give me it now.
I only have a couple years, maybe. You know, sometimes you never know. So you never know when your last fight is, especially with the UFC. So I'm like, I'm always pushing to try to fight. You know, like just get a quick turnover, but. I think I'm going to take a tad bit of time off and just kind of enjoy it again. You know, I do enjoy training, like I said, but sometimes it's hard to really learn while you have camps. You know, you can't really learn or focus on that. You're focused on game plans, you're focused on opponents. So for me, maybe having a couple of months of just enjoying jiu-jitsu, enjoying technique, and really just trying to learn and create a little bit more of a diversity in my game.
Casey's always said it to me. He said he likes to see guys, you know, maybe fight two, but the third one might be pushing it, you know, in a cycle. Like, it's kind of like, give it a little break, develop a new skill, get another arrow in your quiver, if you will, you know, get something else in the toolbox. Because if you push it and try to do the third, it's sometimes a little too much. And by that, I mean, everybody listening, you know, there's cycles in this. You go through camps, everything else. Like, it's kind of like you got to give it a few months to refresh everything and give everybody a different look.
Yeah, especially like a guy like me. I have 36 professional fights. So it's like, if you do the math on it, like, you know, it's 3.6 fights a year for 10 years straight, you know. So like, if you're having even just 3 fights a year, if a camp's a few months, it's like that's almost taking your entire year up. So, and not to mention injuries and stuff. Luckily, I haven't dealt with anything major. But, you know, after some of these fights, these bangers I've had, you know, my shin will be a little bit busted up, my elbow, my shoulder, and none of us are ever 100%. But
you want to give your body a little time to reset.
Yeah, and during that reset time, you can really pick up some new technique and really try to redefine some of your aspects in your fight game.
Now, lastly, I know you brought up the 36 fights. I'm glad you did. 30 is rare. 35 is pretty rare.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of guys with 35 fights plus, you know, but 40 and 50 is insane. Yeah. Is that something you've ever thought about?
Oh, well, I'll for sure get to 40. I mean, I'm
no doubt.
Yeah, I'm only a few fights away from 40. Just as long as I can do it healthily, you know, like I don't want to be, you know, Andre Arlovski's age and be getting knocked out every time. I mean, he's like on a 5-fight win streak, so he's obviously doing the right things.
He's changing things. He's doing it different.
It could be genetics too.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? Maybe his brain has a little bit, you know, is a bit tougher to take more damage. And some guys get hit one time and they're, they're on a wheelchair or something. So for me, as long as I can do it and be healthy and articulate myself with clear and concise sentences, I think
it's important.
Because I mean, obviously, things start to happen. You know, if you get hit in the head too many times, you can, fighting's probably not going to be a longevity for you. So, but luckily for me, the Cleveland Clinic does MRIs on me, and they do like kind of cognitive stuff. So, and so far so good. My brain's good, but as long as I can do it healthy, I mean, I'm down to fight as long as I can.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, you want to make sure you can always put your slippers on in the morning. You know what I mean? You want to make sure you're always 100. But I would think, I got to look into it, but 50's insane. If you get there, I mean, 50's, you'll definitely get to 40, but I have to imagine there's not a lot of guys at 50.
Yeah, I mean, you got some of these, older guys that have those types of fights, but
it's rare.
For me, I was lucky enough to stay healthy for the first handful of years that I had. I mean, the first year that I fought professionally, I had 6 fights.
Yeah,
and most people don't do that. I fought literally every other month for a full year and had 6 fights. And I've had a few years like that where it's just like I piled in a bunch of fights. But it was only because I was healthy. I was not dealing with many injuries. I think. Skateboarding, snowboarding, the balance had helped me, and then just kind of the quick reactions had helped me not get my arm stuck in a bad spot to where it got, where I fell back on it. I see
a major injury.
Juan Camilo dislocated his elbow. I
saw that was crazy. Did you see that? That was insane. Did he do it when he posted, or was it before? Because it looked like when he posted, it came out.
When he had posted, he dislocated it, but it's like. And there's been times where, like, in the middle of a scramble, I'd posted my hand and pulled it away at the last second, thinking, and then afterwards thinking, holy shit, like maybe I would have saved my arm from breaking. Same with ankles, knees, all the above. So I've been pretty lucky with that.
I'm cool with a little injury on the mat, something happens. But I tell guys all the time, like I'm tapping. I'm not trying to win open mat fucking gold medals, Well,
and that's like ego too. Like, so for me, I'm never gonna get injured because my ego's too big. The only time I would get injured is like a random scramble where we're falling.
Oh, money's on the line.
Yeah, but like in the gym, if I fall weird and on my elbow and stuff, and I think that's what saved me the most is my reaction, is my ability to react in those split seconds and not get hurt.
Yeah, that's why I don't screw around with a lot of wall shit anymore or anything else. Because believe me, nobody wants to be a sit down and play this game guy. Yeah. But I do it because I got to get up for work in the morning. So when I roll I know a lot of you guys like to work against the wall. I'm like, you're gonna fuck me up, and I'm not interested in that. Like, I'm totally not interested in that. I mean, granted, like I said, if you're doing jiu-jitsu, Julian, 10th planet anywhere, but nobody wants to play this game. You know what I mean? It's I don't want to, but at the same time, I'm not there to win a grapplers event. It's a lot, and it can take its toll on you, and it's one little slip up. But that was gruesome. The elbow. Yeah, that was like one of the more next to maybe Weidman.
Yeah. I mean, and luckily for him, it's something that can be put back into place, and it's like I don't know if he is having surgery. Or what the situation is.
I think he had surgery right away, Weidman. The elbow, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what they did, but they got him out of there quick.
Yeah. So, hopefully he'll be all right.
The resetting of that's gotta suck.
It's gotta hurt. I mean, dislocating anything has gotta be difficult. Luckily for me, I have never dislocated
fingers anything. About it, yeah.
I've been so lucky, man. I don't think I've ever broken anything, torn any ligaments.
You've definitely broken something. You probably just don't know. Like Cody was in here today. I don't want to say it, but he had a little injury.
Yeah, I think I might have maybe broken maybe some thumbs back in some.
You usually just put them in yourself. You're like, fuck, that hurts, But like guys, if you haven't seen it, let me just say this: like, go back and watch it. It was at the elbow, and let me tell you, his wrist was where his elbow should be. Like, it was fucking nasty. Yeah. It was one of the more nasty breaks I've seen. I mean, the Weidman one was bad. It was really bad, the leg. Those scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, I mean, God, it's
a lot.
Yeah, and those are those things that, like, when it's happening to them, their body will, the leg will break, but their mind doesn't really understand.
Well, that's what happened with Connor a little bit.
Yeah, he won't understand what's happening until 10 seconds later or a few seconds later, And that's just it's so gross.
You can
Especially when they try to
understand
step
it a
back on
little bit better at the joint, like with Connor's, like it was at the joint.
Yeah.
In the elbow is at the joint. When it's just a straight leg break from a kick or something, you're like, oof. Like it's so nasty to see because you know what that feels like. You get that weird feeling. It's fucking wild. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm excited to see how this plays out with you because I think beyond just making the UFC, and I know for some people that's like a huge badge of honor, I know you want more and I know you're pursuing more and it's going to be exciting to see, but I think you're going to hit some really interesting thresholds the next couple of years and I'm excited to watch, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm honored to have you as a teammate and I'm honored to have you in here. And I just I love seeing guys like yourself that just the perseverance and the willingness to block out the distractions and just even see how you approach your business when you come in the gym. You're not a guy who comes in and wastes time. There's not a lot of frills. You're there to work. Yeah. And that's what I love to see. And shout out to your management and shout out to everybody involved, Casey, everybody in your camps, Eddie. And it's just, you know, you have the right recipe and you're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
So I'm honored to have you and I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Anytime.
And recognizing those things, you know, like you got to be. You got to be focused. If you're kind of, you know, if you're, you know, half stepping in the gym, you're going to be half stepping in the fight. And so when I'm in the gym, I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying myself, but I'm there to work. Yeah,
no. And like I said, I appreciate you coming in and you'll do it again, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, anytime, man.
Of course. You like it in here, so we'll get you back awesome. In. We're adding a punching bag.
Oh,
I'm serious. Like I'll tell you about it after. I'm telling you, we're adding something crazy. So look for, hey guys, go check out. Let everybody know where they can find you, how they can reach you, and how they can get in touch. Give them your online links and all that.
Yeah, obviously, Instagram is the best way to reach out to me and get a hold of me, and I'm pretty good about answering back. Julian_Erosa. And if you want to, you know, know any sponsors and stuff, usually it's posted on there. You know, obviously Facebook too, but Instagram is the best way to reach out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a Twitter too. I saw that. You do have a Twitter. You don't use it though.
I literally don't hardly use anything on anything. My wife does a lot of my stuff for me. So if you see posts,
don't read into it too much.
Understand that it's probably my wife that posted it, and she's the one putting the work in behind the scenes.
Oh. Listen, it's so funny. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to what the next thing brings. And if you want to grapple with this guy in the off season, come up to 10th Planet. You can come meet us. Open mat on Sunday. Yes. Anybody who wants to ball will be there. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who's in the chat, especially this guy. And I appreciate all you guys, Eric and everybody sharing all the links. Go check out all of Julian's stuff. Check out the sponsors. Head over to the website, johnbartoloshow.com. There's a complete list there. The hats are not for sale. Stop asking. Maybe at some point. But I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Please like and subscribe. Thank you to Secure It. Thank you to Sig Sauer. Thank you to Howlerhead. Thank you to Right On Optics. Thank you to Volkortson. Thank you to Galco. And, of course, Secure It. Appreciate all the sponsors. They're all listed down below, guys. There's a complete list and all the links are shared. Love you guys. I appreciate everyone's support. We'll be back. We're out.
Let's go.